that was the biggest story that broke yesterday in the wee hours, late evening actually, and it was all over the place, and football lovers, different perspectives actually about this one, especially after the elections held. But you know, Segun Egbami did talk about Sepp Blatter being stopped. That was early this year. Look at one of the high points in that speech. Let's look at what he did say. He said that he set for himself one goal, a resolution of some sort, to join forces with whoever loves the game of football to stop Sepp Blatter from returning as president of FIFA when the next elections hold this year. This was then, but let's come back to studios. Now, he's here with us to shed some light on why he wrote this one. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
And this was in January, and there were strong words too about that article of yours. Why? What informed this?
I just felt at the time that Sepp Blatter had become the most powerful man on earth. Even the President of the United States is touchable, but Sepp Blatter had become someone who was truly untouchable. He had been there for 4 terms. If you look at even the presidency of the US, you can only be there for 2 terms. That's the most powerful political office in the world.
But his predecessor, Havelange, it was almost the same thing. He stayed that long as well. How come we didn't see something at that time and now we do?
Well, the world is a different place. From when Havelange was to now, the transformation is absolutely different. In the days of Havelange, how many people really followed football? Now we have over 4 billion people. Bill Clinton said it, Tony Blair said it, Mandela said it, that when the world truly appreciates the power of football, the followership of football, if it is utilized to drive different political, socio-cultural agenda, it will unleash on the world the most powerful force the world has ever seen. People see it as a game, but you know, these foolish things of the world can even confound the wise. So, Sepp Blatter knew it. By the time he came into power, he had spent several years in FIFA, and he had seen everything. And he was in such control that nobody, it took FBI and several years of investigation and even the totality of the American movement to get to him now.
But it wasn't a dictatorship.
It was.
It was a democracy.
It was.
Wasn't it? There were elections that held. He was always elected into office. And when people couldn't vote him out, he just thought that, yeah, if they lose out on one end, they try and see how they could also twist him and see how they can get him out.
Well, from my own understanding, elections into football associations, football federations, football confederations are totally different from the elections you see politically in other spheres. Remember the Nigerian elections, the things we had to go through. The processes are so convoluted, they are so manipulated in such ways that you don't find the players there. The players are the ones who produce all the money. The players are the ones who produce all the passion and excitement. They are not there. The fans are the ones that support the game. There are 4 billion all over the world. They don't have a say in it. That's why I liked what Sepp Blatter said. You could see he was referring to the players, the clubs. Those are the stakeholders that were not backing him. Everybody else was backing him, including Platini. So it is a strange world. And the elections into football associations and federations are so different.
I want to go back to your point. You wrote, some would say you went beyond being mathematical and even, well, it was as if you saw the future, because you actually wrote, you said, if he went for that election, he was going to win, even though you don't want him to continue. Yeah. You knew he was going to win. How stone sure were you then when you wrote that?
Sepp Blatter was in control. Until 2 days ago, he was controlling world football. He had absolute powers because for being president for 16, almost 17 years, he had a hand, directly or indirectly, in how all the confederation presidents got into the executive of FIFA, how several other association members got into their different associations, directly or indirectly. He touched Nigeria. He had a hand even in how our own presidents came into being presidents. So He had all those things, and he knew he would never have gone, because he promised in 2011 that he wasn't going to contest anymore. So that was his last. And for him to have come 4 years later, brazenly, arrogantly, with everybody watching and everybody saying, no, no, this man should not do it. And he did it. He was cocksure. He was absolutely sure he was going to get it. And if you know, just before the elections, Figo, resigned from the elections. Jerome Champagne, my friend, he called me up when he read this piece and he said, look, what can we do? And I asked him if he had money to challenge Blatter. He said no, he withdrew, and everybody
So
withdrew.
it was that intense.
It was, yeah, it was.
And he's been there in FIFA for almost 41 years.
Exactly, 41 years in control. So he knew everybody, he knew everything, he had a hand in how they got there, and he knew particularly Africa and Asia. You know, this poverty mentality, where we have presidents who are willing to take, you know how corruption is in Africa.
Yeah, but I mean...
For bits and pieces, they can be bought, that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
very easily.
Just before we entered the allegations of corruption, which it would seem were pervasive throughout his tenure, some people would say that, do you think that this could be a conspiracy? Because it would seem that people have different ideas. So, for instance, in the West, you get people getting used to presidents changing power, leaders don't stay in power for so long. But in most African or Asian countries, well, whether or not a leader does well, he can stay in office. Was it that his tenure was that bad that, you know, they sought his removal?
Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Corruption and power go hand in hand. And that's what we have seen. When Sepp Blatter started, he was the most experienced person in the world to have taken over from Joe Haviland, because he had occupied several positions, he was general secretary and so on. So everybody absolutely supported him. But the moment you have power, as we have seen in several African countries, and you are in control and you are human, then it gradually deteriorates into arrogancy, into corruption, into, you know, all of those other elements, which is exactly what happened with Sepp Blatter. Up till now, nobody has proven that Blatter is a corrupt person. Nobody has, and nobody is even saying that he's corrupt himself. But for sitting over that huge organization that we all know, we know that it is corrupt, but we haven't been able to prove. Corruption is hard to prove. We know that in Nigeria there's corruption everywhere, but who has come out to prove anything? In the NFA, corruption pervades the whole place from top to bottom. But nobody has been able to come and say, you know, provide tangible evidence so that you can deal with the situation. And then you have an organization that is immune from prosecution. Nobody can take them to court until now because of this fraud thing. And in fact, the whole situation...
But that's sorry, just a moment,
Yes.
but that's the problem. I mean, aside the allegations of corruption, because did it impede the efficiency of the organization? Did it impede its effectiveness?
Okay, let me tell you the interesting thing. You see why FIFA is surviving? It's because in all of this, it doesn't touch the game. You see, all of this corruption and everything you hear does not touch the game. The game is going on. The game is thriving, is doing well, people are watching, they are happy and so on. But it is the administration. So when you are talking of impeding, that which people watch every day is not touched. If it were touched, Sepp Blatter would have gone. But it is not touched. The game itself is doing well. It is safe. It is, you know, everything is fine.
Shouldn't there have been the yardstick?
That should have been. That is what has been. That is exactly what has been. Because the game is doing well, so people disregard the other side. You know, people do not pay too much attention to what's going on and all, even though they know. And we had somebody, we saw on CNN, somebody admit to, in fact, received, admitted and all of that, and yet nothing happened.